there is a manual breaking point in businesses when the load of an area of a business simply becomes too much to handle. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about how you can identify your manual load breaking point and also some tips to kind of break through it and implement some systems around it. So the main three that I see in fitness businesses are client load, admin load, and fulfillment load. This is actually client sales load. So apologies there, but these are the main three that are the easiest to build systems around. Obviously, there's more that you can kind of break down this into, and there's different areas of the business too, but these are the main three, and I'm going to be talking about them in sequence today. So the client sales load, this is when you are getting more sales that you can possibly handle. Now, I've worked with businesses in like currently and in the past who reach this point when, you know, they're doing 40 to 50 sales calls a week, and the founder cannot simply take any more, right? And it becomes a major hazard, because if anything happens to the founder, if they, you know, go down for a week or want to take a week off, like they just have to stop taking calls, which means revenue dries up. So this is a unique issue that unless you move to like a different way of selling. So instead of doing sales calls, you start doing like just like funnel conversions, and you're getting people to sign up without a sales call. It's really hard for the founder to step away from the entire sales role, which I don't think they should step away from it. I think they should start to assist it. So a couple of examples here. I was working with a founder last year who was doing 40 to 50 sales calls a week, and got to the point where she could simply not take any more. And she was getting burnt out, and fulfillment started to lack on her end, because it just wasn't possible for her to continue on with the amount of sales calls that she was doing. Now, she was really happy with the money that she was making, because she had a really good close rate, and her ticket price was reasonable. It was like $100 a week. And so she didn't get many people saying no. So the hardest thing for her was to say, okay, I'm going to need to enter a different vehicle in my business than I previously was in to get me to this spot to move forward, because it becomes less about like, how can I do more? And it more so becomes about, how can I get other people to help me do more? Because there is no, like, you hit the ceiling here. If you're just doing sales calls 95% of your week, you're unable to grow. You can't grow in any other area. If anything, you would start to slowly die. And then you'll look at the solution that you have is to just sell more. And that works temporarily, but it's a really dangerous cycle. So when the client sales load becomes too much, you've got too many leads, you've got too many sales calls, what can you actually do to improve it? So there's a couple of things you can do. So the first one is obviously automate lead flow. And what I mean by lead flow is like, when you get an inquiry, send a text message, get them to book in themselves, and try and take that any like manual communication that you have with the client pre-sales call away. Now, when you automate lead flow, you have a couple of things that you can do internally into that as well. So you can add friction to your funnel. So add friction to your funnel. What this means is you're going to get higher quality appointments. And the way that you can do that is by adding questions like, are you willing to commit financially, and things like, are you invested in finding a solution? And you just adding more questions in general. The more questions you add, the less people will fill it out, but the more qualified people will. So that is one thing that you can do. The second thing that you can do with client sales load is hire a closer. Hire a closer. So this one here, or a setter. So closer or setter. So if you don't know the difference, a closer is someone who actually takes a call. A setter is someone who sets the call. However, if you're automating it on the front end and you're happy with them, like the amount of leads that you're getting, you probably don't need a setter. But a closer, their job is to close deals. And when they do, you pay them a commission. So there's a couple of different ways that you can approach this. You can have a percentage deal. you can have a salary closer, which I don't recommend, or you could do like base plus comms. So base plus commission. So either get just a percentage of the deal, someone who's on a salary. Big companies do this with a small commission, but it's just more stability. And then base plus comms. This is probably like in Australia, this is probably more likely that you'll pay. You get less just full percentage deals, but in the States and in other places, full percentage deals are more common. The thing is, if you're selling fitness, let's break down the numbers here for a second. So as a closer and as a founder operator, you need to think of the same thing. So what's the ticket price? So the ticket price is, you're signing someone up for $100 per week. $100 per week, right? But that's not really the ticket price, because no one's going to close a deal if you're paying them 20% of that. So $20 for a closed deal. No one's going to accept that offer. It's ridiculous. May as well go get a minimum wage job. The ticket price is actually your minimum contract, and that total value. So if that's 12 weeks at $100, it's $1,200, right? 1,200 monies. Now, you can structure this commission in any kind of way that you'd like. It could be like a percentage of that 1,200. So a percentage of 1,200, say it's, 20%. And so they're getting what, $240? I think that's right. Let me just do 1,200 times 0.2. Yeah, 240. Which, that's a decent deal structure. With like a lot of online coaching businesses, that you can absorb that cost. And then if you sell that person again, so if you sell them past the 12 weeks for another 12 weeks, you're in the clear. You don't have to pay an ongoing commission. So $240 is a decent close. Like if you have a higher volume of leads for a closer and they can close, 5 people a day, so 5 times 240, they're making $1,200 a day. And if they do that every day, so 1,200 times 5, they're making, $6,000 a week, which is going to be really good. It's unlikely they're going to sell that well, but if they can make anywhere between $4,000 and $6,000 a week, that's very good for them. The next one, another way that you can run commissions is just a percentage of the lifetime of the client. So of lifetime of client, right? And the way that this works is if the closer closes one person and they're being paid, like they pay $100 per week, then for every week the person stays, you could give the closer $10, right? So this becomes in their best interest to make sure that the person stays for as long as possible. So the closer in this situation would potentially work more like a customer success manager as well, to retain them for as long as possible. Now, the reason why this is beneficial is because if the closer doesn't close a deal, in a couple of days or whatever, they still have their recurring revenue from the lifetime percentage of the client. And this is actually really good for closers. If the minimum lifetime is 36 weeks, for example, they end up netting like 360, is that right? $360 divided by 10. Yeah. Maths. They end up getting $360 over, a 20% upfront. And it means you don't have to pay them as much. So when the deal goes through, so they just get 10% of each client. Now, the way that you would track this, you need to be able to track your client retention, and you need to be transparent with it, because people, if someone's a closer, they want real data. They just don't want what you're telling them. They want to be able to see it. So they need to be able to see client retention stats, and you need to monitor this accurately, having a good onboarding and offboarding for your clients. So I think the best way to start and incentivize people is probably this one here, because closers want to make fast money. And if you wanted to promote them to a lifetime of a client deal, then that's pretty good too. And but scope would have to change here. So it really is like potato, whichever one you really want to go through. Now, when you do actually hire that closer, what's going on here? doesn't matter. When you do actually hire that closer, you're going to need to have systems around that closer too. So if you use Calendly, for example, or GHL, you would round robin your sales calls. So basically what happens is, there's a pool of people who can take the call, probably yourself, the closer, and maybe another closer. So if you had 3 people, it will then delegate those sales calls accordingly. So, if you're available but the closers aren't, it'll go to you. If they're available but you're not, it'll go to you. If all 3 of you are available, then it'll pick one of 3 at random and it will balance over time. So allowing you to do that gives an equal distribution of calls, and it will allow you to make sure that you're staying on top of who's getting the deals and whatever. You should just be using a round robin, hands down. Don't try and do this manually. It'll create more work. Now, what happens now after you've done like the automation on and the getting a setter or a closer, the sales load problem becomes more about how can you keep this team firing on all cylinders. So how can you hype them up? How can you get them excited? The setters and closers are the people who really run on motivation. They're the ones who are watching like sales motivation before they get started. And they really need to be hyped up, because right now they probably don't care about your business. They care about making money, and that's why they're here. So you need to give them a higher purpose than just making money, and you need to do it really quickly. And if you can't do that, you're probably going to lose a lot of closers. And it can be so detrimental on your business if you are losing closers frequently, because they don't buy into the vision, and it means you have to train a new closer every time. And if you have to build systems around a new closer every time, it's really hard. So first and foremost, automate your lead flow, then hire a closer or a setter, or both, or just one of them, to help you with sales calls. Now, once you have that person in place, you need to track their percentage, their close rate. So close rate percentage. You should be getting them to do recaps of every call, and you should be getting them to do a daily report of sales. You should also do sales training twice a week in the form of a meeting where you do role play. You could even increase the sales training to every day, 2 days a week, but you probably should do role play 5 times a week. And it should be first thing in the morning so that they can continually stay sharp. Okay, moving on to the next one. There's more things you should track, but this video is going to go too long if I go through them all. But let's get into it. So the admin load. So the admin load, what I'm talking about is things like accounting. So accounting and bookkeeping, like bookkeeping, reporting. What else have we got? Like expense tracking and stuff like that, but it's also accounting, reporting, mainly those two. And just like, it's more like onboarding as well. Onboarding team management, and self-management, right? So it's these management. Cool. So these things are things you should be considering when it comes to like overload of work, and your manual breaking point in this is the admin load on you as a founder. So accounting and bookkeeping, by this point, you should have an accountant by now. If you don't, just like get one. Accountant. It's not impressive that you do your own tax. Accountant. Easy enough. The next one is reporting. So if you are running reports, if you are getting information about your business, this should be automated. You shouldn't have to update spreadsheets manually. You should not have to go over the months or the year or the quarter's worth of information and pull data from it, because by that time it's probably a little bit too late. You need information instantly accessible. And the way that you can do this is by building systems that are, I don't know how to spell accessible. Oh well. That are the systems that are integrated into your process. So for example, if you want to track client onboarding, client retention. So client retention. So finding how long people stay for during your onboarding process, OB process, you should add your clients and the date they started to client start date to Airtable, right? Or Google Sheets if you can't be bothered doing Airtable. So client start date to Airtable, right? And then when you offboard clients, it should update the same record. Update record, the same row, not the same not the variable of the client start date, but rather update record client end date, right? And so when they leave, you can see this person stayed for, 36 weeks. Now, having that information, you can have that visualized in a graph or something like that. And you should be able to see a running total of how long people have stayed for in your business, which lets you know what your LTV is. It also lets you understand how much you can spend to acquire a client. If that doesn't make sense to you, then that's okay. But what I mean, he who spends the most to acquire a client wins. So if however much you can spend and continue spending to gain clients, so long as you're making like a 2, 3, 4x multiple on how much you spend, you should be fine. But the reporting side of it, you should be able to see all that information straight away. Just like when you're coaching people and you give them information about how their weight drops, like it goes down in a graph, you need to see the same thing with your business. So that's a really big one. A lot of people spend so much time on reporting and they don't actually get anywhere. The secret is in automating it. Cool. Onboarding team. So this is another one. It kind of tags on to this. The first person you hire in a fitness business is either going to be a VA to help you with your workload, or it's a closer. If you intend on scaling, then you're going to need an onboard team and be able to continuously onboard team. So having a process around team onboarding. So process to spin team up in less than 3 days, right? People should be producing work on their first day. And if they're not, it's your fault. So the way that you can improve the onboarding of team is to have a detailed user guide that the person doesn't need someone else to show them through it. So detailed user guide where they can ask questions, but it should be so self-explanatory that they know every single thing they need to do in order to get started with their job within like the first hour, right? And the way that that comes about is you have really detailed job descriptions and you have really good documentation. So spend the time, automate that as well. So onboard them to Slack, onboard them to Trainerize, onboard them to different platforms that you use, project management tools, whatever it might be. Have it all written down and tell people exactly how to do their job, because at the end of the day, that's what they need. Team management. So if you're not using like tools to monitor your team, and I don't mean like breathe down their throat, I mean just like make sure that they're doing what should be done. You should probably start doing that. So if you don't have like a daily meeting, which I think daily meetings are probably a little bit old now. Instead of daily meetings, like a daily stand-up or something like that, where people bring what they worked on yesterday, what they're working on today, and anything they're stuck on. You should have like daily forms for them to complete. And I see some people do this like on the hour. So every hour they have to fill out a form, and that's one of their KPIs is filling out that form. It's a really good way to keep people on task. However, I think even just like daily 2 times forms where they fill out what's been completed, just like a Google form, right? And then every week you should have all hands on deck to talk about relevant company issues. It also is the opportunity to inspire them to align with the vision, whatever you're working on, etc. And also have a place for them to like a water cooler, right? So what I mean by a water cooler is where people can just like talk shit, whether that's on Slack or whatever it might be. Water cooler is important. And the last thing is yes, the forms are there, like the daily forms, but don't try and breathe down people's necks. If you've hired well, you shouldn't need to spend every 5 minutes speaking to your team. You should be able to set them with their task, give them their project, give them their job description, and let them run. If they don't perform within, a month, you can fire them. But trying to breathe down their neck and control them is not the way to lead people. And again, I'm not a master on this. I went too far the other way when I first started hiring people, which was like I just gave them too much freedom and they just took the piss. However, what you should be doing is hiring good people to begin with and then nurture them. So mentor them, don't manage them. And I hope that doesn't come back to bite me, but that's how I feel. Self-management. So this is another one. So if you've implemented all of the above and you're now like spending, 2 to 3 hours a day, so 2 to 3 hours a day doing sales, 1 to 2 hours doing fulfillment, and 1 hour managing team, you're going to feel weird, especially if you've been doing 12-hour days. So that's what, 3, 5, 6 hours of work. 6 hours. If you are happy with that, stay like that. Stay with a 6-hour work day and just run the business. And that's fine. However, if you want to really push the needle and get as much and squeeze as much juice out of this business as you can, I would then look at ways that you can optimize yourself. So if you are the kind of person who, works really well in the morning, build a system around your morning. If you're someone who works really well in the evening, build a system around your evening. If you know you're terrible during the day, find ways that you can complete your role without having to do it in the middle of the day. This is like such a bespoke thing that you can kind of ask yourself the question and you'll come up with a really good answer. This is not like take 6 ice baths and do 2 hours of meditation and then go for a 2-hour walk and then it's already midday before the time you start work. It's not that. It's find something that gives you energy to work. For example, like I play golf. So for me, self-management is like getting up a couple of mornings a week, playing golf before I even start work. And then the first thing I do these days is film a YouTube video. And after that, I'll write my blog, which I've already done this morning. So with these things, I'm keeping on top of everything I need to do, and then I'll jump into fulfillment, etc. after the important stuff is done, which is making videos. So self-management, again, this looks different for everyone, but pay attention to it because if you don't, you're just going to fizzle. And finally is the fulfillment load. So this is pretty bespoke to fitness, but let's talk about it. So fulfillment load is getting clients coached without you, right? Now, there's a few ways you can do this. So one, really good OB onboarding process where the client fills out enough info that the training portion of the business is done via automation. So the way that you can do this is ask, what's your goal? How many days a week do you want to train? What food do you like? How many meals do you want to eat per day? And take that information, run it through a little algorithm, and then allocate training programs based on that. If you don't know how to do it, I'll probably make a video on it, but that is, I'm just going to go high level on that because if I go too deep on it, it'll get boring. The next part is getting clients, getting clients to be accountable without you, because a lot of coaches will message their clients, every day, every second day, keeping them accountable, which is one of the real things that people actually need in order to achieve a fitness goal is staying accountable. So ways that you can do this is ghost coach. So someone who literally their job is just to copy how you communicate and message clients and be like, hey mate, hope today's going well. What's the focus for today? Right? So just questions like that. So keeping people accountable, keep them on top of things and thinking about their fitness goals at all times so they don't get distracted. Now, the ghost coaches, if you work on something like Trainerize, I don't know why this is so hard for me right now. If you work on, Trainerize, TZ, you could just have them log in as you. If you use WhatsApp, again, you can just have them log in as you, kahunas. It's all the same thing, kahunas. And then I would just pay someone, in the Philippines to do this because it's cheap labor and it's not that hard of a job. It's actually really easy. I wouldn't try and automate accountability except for like easy to marker checkpoints. So like week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, like a message on a Monday, that's fine to be automated. It's like, hey, it's week 2, like let's get into it. However, I wouldn't try and automate daily messages. It just comes across as really weird and doesn't actually help people because they know it's automated. It's not genuine. So keep it genuine. And the fulfillment load of re-signing clients. A lot of coaches seem to really struggle with this, especially if they sell like 12-week blocks. Selling someone into another 12-week block is really hard. So instead of doing that, take the 12-week block and then sign them into weekly at a discounted rate so they feel like they're getting a deal. And when you do this, get them on a automated system for training plan. At this point, they should be less effort to coach, and it's more about giving them what they're really looking for continuously. So for some people, that might be a friend. Some people, that might be, just a training program and a meal plan. So long as you deliver on it and they don't feel like the balance of how much they're paying for how much they're receiving tips too much and they're paying too much and not receiving enough, you should be fine. Retaining people, getting them engaged, keeping them engaged, giving them like celebrations for their achievements will help you with your fulfillment load because they become easier to train as time gets on. You start to learn them better, right? So the way that you can decrease your fulfillment load is really by coaching them better. And ways that you can do that is using these here. So I hope you guys found this valuable. Again, new style of videos where I'm breaking things down more from like a systems top level down point of view. Anyway, I've got fulfillment to jump into. So I will speak to you guys soon. And yeah, bye for now.